breaking ball and a call. Strike three. Third strikeout for Zach.
He's going to just watch it go. A grand slam for Bryson Stott.
And there's a high fly ball. Deep right field. Harper watches it fly.
From WHYY, it is Hittin season. Hey there, podcast pals. I'm John Stolnis from The Good Phight. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at John Stolnis. Coming up, Phillies finish off a series in Cincinnati pretty weakly. The offense disappears. Jekyll and Hyde stuff from the Phils once again after looking so good the last time we hopped on the microphone to talk. 2 lackluster losses against the Reds in Ohio. We're going to break it all down here for you coming up in the next few minutes. The offense goes to sleep again. Some thoughts on Ranger Suarez. Kyle Schwarber being openly courted by the Reds. I don't know how this isn't tampering in some way, but we'll talk about that a little bit, and some of the struggling Phillies players, specifically Nick Castellanos, and is Jordan Romano's time with the Phillies almost done? And then I've got a special guest coming up here on the podcast to help preview this weekend series against the Washington Nationals. Die-hard Washington Nationals fan, my son Ethan, will be joining us on the podcast he'll break it all down for us. He's going to tell us what to watch for this weekend and what has gone wrong in the nation's capital this year for a Nationals team that people had higher hopes for. So we'll get into all that coming up here on this edition of Hittin season. But yes, the Phillies lose the final 2 games of their series in Cincinnati and finish off a very good road trip. However, it's in uninspiring fashion. Phillies losing 8-0 on Wednesday after losing 5-1 on Tuesday. In fact, the Phillies offense, even in the game they won, they scored 4 in the 8th inning on Tuesday. They only scored in 2 of the 27 innings they played in Cincinnati. The offense disappeared, and truth be told, the final 2 games in Texas against the Rangers, it was not exactly a great offensive showing. They scored some runs late. They got some clutch hits late. But it was not a good offensive performance against the Texas Rangers, against Jacob deGrom on Saturday and then again on Sunday. So really, it's been the last 5 games the Phillies offense hasn't done a whole lot. And much of the issue has come with with scoring early in the games. Only once in their last 7 games have the Phillies scored a run in the first 3 innings. Going back to August 6th, it's only happened one time, and that was on August 8th. In their last, 5 games, the Phillies have not scored a run in the first 3 innings. So they've been getting behind. They have been trailing by a lot early in these games because the pitching, generally speaking, has been pretty good, but the offense has not been getting on the board early and putting their starting pitchers behind the 8 ball right from the jump. The Phillies got just 3 hits against Hunter Greene and the Cincinnati pitching staff. Hunter Greene is an ace. He's a great right-handed starter, and the Cincinnati Reds have really good starting pitching. That's the strength of their team, obviously. Hunter Greene hadn't pitched in 2 months. This was his first start back from a groin injury in 2 months, and he goes and pitches 6 innings of shutout ball against the Phils. Now, he was throwing 100 miles an hour. He's got an ERA well under 3 during the course of the season, and he's widely regarded as one of the best right-handed starters in baseball. So he is an ace, but here's the issue. And people are going to make excuses for the Phillies offense because it was Hunter Greene. Guess what? In the playoffs, you're going to face pitchers like Hunter Greene. You're going to face really good starting pitching. And Christopher Sanchez took the mound for the Phillies here on Wednesday night. He pitched well until a disastrous 6th inning where the Phillies were down 1-0. Sanchez had been keeping it close, looked pretty good, but gave up 3 runs in the 6th. That comedy of errors on that allowed the final 2 runs to score, where you have an airmailed throw to home plate, and then Christopher Sanchez tries to pick the ball up as it got away from JT Realmuto, tried to get a runner at third. That threw sailed into the outfield, so it was like a little league home run. It turned into a comedy of errors on Wednesday night. But the Phillies offense, really the big culprit here in this series, a punchless offense once again, and you look at this offense over the last 7 days coming into the game on Wednesday, and some of the guys who were the hottest were absolutely punchless. Right now, it's the middle of the order is struggling mightily. Bryce Harper coming into Wednesday, 167 batting average and over the last 7 days with a 200 on-base percentage and a 375 slugging percentage, just the 1 home run over the last 7 days, a meaningless ninth-inning home run trailing 6-1 on Tuesday night against the Reds. Kyle Schwarber, in the midst of getting courted by the Reds repeatedly, 2 home runs over the last 7 days. He did go deep here in the win, so a big home run in the win on Monday, as we talked about, but in his over the last 7 days, an .087 batting average for Kyle Schwarber, 192 on base and a 348 slugging percentage. Nick Castellanos, brutal over the last 7 days. And they've got him batting cleanup in number 5 over the last 2 days. An .048 average. No walks. He's got just 1 hit over the last 7 days in 21 plate appearances. And that was coming into the game on Wednesday. Brutal stuff from Nick Castellanos, and some of the other Nick Castellanos numbers are even worse. I'm going to get into that in just a second. Max Kepler, 273 over the last 7 days. Edmundo Sosa, 278 over the last few days. Some guys hitting well. Trey Turner, 304. Bryson Stott, 385. J.T. Realmuto continues his hot hitting, 400 over the last 7 days. Brandon Marsh, 357. Weston Wilson, 375. But this was most of that damage was done in the Texas series. Here against the Reds, not a lot of offense to go around. I do want to talk a little bit more about some of the Nick Castellanos numbers because they've absolutely fallen off a cliff. And it really is kind of an epic slump that no one has been talking about because the team had been playing better. After an 0-for-4 night on Wednesday, Nick Castellanos now on the season batting .256 with a .294 on-base percentage and a .412 slugging percentage. Nick Castellanos has an on-base percentage well under 300 this season. That is just not sustainable. Negative 0.6 wins above replacement for him coming in to the game on Wednesday. You can't have that from your number 4, number 5 hitter, or even your number 6 hitter. It's just, they're brutal numbers. Over his last 65 games coming into Wednesday, he's hitting .231 with a .265 on base and a .423 slugging percentage. Over his last 31 games, going back to July 2nd, a .205 average, .230 on base, .336 slugging percentage, 31 strikeouts and 4 walks. He has just 5 home runs during that stretch and 1 double. And you can just see it at the plate. He's reaching for everything. He's either late on everything or reaching out and poking things. This is how he looked when he was really bad in 2022. Any hit that he got was just kind of on a bad ball swing. Very rarely early in the season, it seemed like he was squaring things up a whole lot better. We have not seen that player in quite some time. And if you look in terms of Fangraphs wins above replacement, Nick Castellanos has been the worst player in baseball in the second half of the season. So far, since the All-Star break, he's worth negative 0.6 wins above replacement. That is last among 177 qualified players. In the second half, a 195 average with a 224 on base and a 317 slugging percentage, 1 double, and 3 home runs. I will also mention that Harrison Bader, the trade deadline acquisition in the midst of this outfield platoon situation, not exactly earning himself more plate appearances. 27 plate appearances in 8 games played so far for Harrison Bader. Again, this is coming into the game on Wednesday. Hitting 167 so far as a Philly with a 259 on base and a 333 slugging percentage so far. He did get the start against Hunter Green, went 0-for-2 with a walk. So the batting average did not go down. He did get a walk, so the on-base percentage will stay close to the same, I would imagine. But a 593 OPS for Harrison Bader here, very early in his Phillies career. So obviously not going to kill the guy for that. But you've also seen Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber. I'm not going to get on because Kyle Schwarber has been so consistent and been so great this season. I'm giving Kyle Schwarber a pass, and Bryce Harper appeared to be kicking it into gear again. Was really, really great for a couple of weeks, but I think what's so confounding about Bryce Harper is how he just goes in and out so much, and that's frustrating. But I also don't want to make too much of 2 bad games in Cincinnati. We were praising the Phillies and the way they were playing at the end of that Texas series. Yes, the offense stumbled a little bit in the final 2 games, but they did enough, and they paired it with great pitching against a really good Texas Rangers team on the road. They went into Cincinnati and won that first game against the Reds, and this is still a Phillies team that is in a commanding position in the National League East. 2 days ago, the confidence level of the fan base around the Phillies was as high as it's been in years. And I don't want 2 games in Cincinnati to totally change the vibes. When this offense goes cold and it looks like they're giving away at bats, I understand that impulse. I feel it too. I want to come on here and I just want to rant and rave about all the players who aren't doing well. And I want to dive into Nick Castellanos' struggles, and I want to try and find out, what Bryce Harper's numbers look like with runners on base. They're very good, by the way. And I want to look at what they are when he's in high leverage situations. Again, they're very good, by the way. It's just 2 games in Cincinnati, and they're going to be going to Washington, D.C. for a 4-game series against a Washington Nationals team that is 10-20 in their last 30 games and playing absolutely brutal baseball. The Phillies I'm pretty certain that we'll win 3 out of 4 against the Washington Nationals, and we'll all start feeling good again. But I get it. The team disappears. They're Jekyll and Hyde. They're rolling right along, and then they play 2 games that make you question whether or not the good feelings that you were having for them were stupid. They make you play you for a fool a little bit. But I think generally speaking, this team is 18 games over 500. They'll get back to 20 over 500. I can't imagine they won't this weekend in Washington. They could very well sweep this 4-game series against the Nationals. When I talk to Ethan about this in just a second, you're going to hear how bad the Nationals are. The pitching is just brutal. So that even this Phillies offense that comes and goes, should be able to have a very fun weekend here in the nation's capital. But it is frustrating. I get it. It is frustrating, but I don't think that these 2 losses in Cincinnati are a reason to freak out. I don't think they're a reason for us to change the way we feel about this team one way or the other. I still think this is probably the 2nd or 3rd best team in baseball right now. I think that this team is really well put together. I still think they have all of the pieces. So no, I'm not out on the Phillies. I'm not overly down on the Phillies. It's frustrating. I'm frustrated to watch them. Watching a team fail offensively is one of the more frustrating things you as a fan can do. It is annoying to lose games the way they have the last couple of days and to lose a series, but the Phillies had won a string of series, and we really shouldn't allow 2 bad games in Cincinnati to take anything away from that. So I'm not overly concerned about 2 losses against the Reds. Frustrating for sure. The offense will drive you crazy. They will make you rip your hair out, and that is certainly what they did these last 2 nights, Tuesday and Wednesday night. Just the bats are going to sleep, but they'll wake up. I really do think they'll wake up this weekend in Washington, D.C. Now let's talk a little bit about Ranger Suarez. His outing on Tuesday, perhaps a bigger concern than any issues we may have about the offense right now, because it's a trend with the Phillies left-hander. His second half declines are becoming a yearly thing. You can set your watch to these things, it would seem. Against the Reds on Tuesday, he lasted only 5 1/3 innings. He allowed 6 runs, gave up a season-high 10 hits in 5 1/3 innings. Now, he got hosed by the home plate umpire a couple of times, and that is fair. He would have gotten out of a couple of innings without giving anything up were it not for a couple bad calls by the home plate umpire on Tuesday night. That being said, his stuff is not looking nearly as effective, and he left a lot of balls over the middle of the plate. His command is not where it needs to be for a pitcher who doesn't throw 93 to begin with and whose velocity is decreasing with each passing start. He has now allowed 11 runs and 19 hits over his last 2 starts. That's 11 2/3 innings. That is a lot of runs, and that is a lot of hits. At Phil's Tailgate noted, Ranger Suarez has a history of cratering in the second half after having really good first halves. Looking back in 2023, his first half, a 3.77 ERA. In the second half, it went up by 0.8 of a run, 4.57 ERA in the second half of 2023. Last year, we all remember how pronounced the change was. In the first half last year, a 2.76 ERA, but He started to struggle shortly before the All-Star break. We remember that run that he went on was the best 15-start run by any Phillies pitcher in franchise history. But a first-half ERA of 2.76 for Ranger. He went on the injured list with a bad back, came back. In the second half, it was a 5.65 ERA. And then this year, a 2.15 ERA in the first half. So far here in the second half, a 6.59 ERA. That is an increase of 4.44. An increase of 4.44 in his ERA from the first half to the second half. The velocity trend line is concerning too. His sinker averaged 89.6 miles an hour against the Reds on Tuesday night. That's the 5th straight start, according to Paul Casella, and the 7th in his last 8 starts in which his sinker sat below 90 miles an hour on average. It was above 90 in 9 of his first 10 outings of the year, when he had his ERA down into the low 2s. And this has been a trend that has continued over the last 2 years. From 2021 to 2023, his average velocity on his sinker was 93.4 miles an hour. In 2024, it dropped to 91.8. This year, it is down to 91.4, and as you've heard, over his last 8 starts, it's been well under 90. That's 2 miles an hour slower than last year. So what is going on? Ranger Suarez says he's fine. He says he's not injured. He says he feels okay, but the velocity isn't there, and he's not commanding the baseball. So what can the Phillies do? Well, what they're going to do this weekend is they're going to push his start back. He was scheduled to pitch on Sunday, but instead he will not pitch Sunday. They will push him into next week to give him a little bit more time. The Phillies kind of wanted to do this with Zach Wheeler, too. They have 2 pitchers here who are dealing with velocity drops and a decrease in their effectiveness in Zach Wheeler and Ranger Suarez, perhaps the 2 hottest pitchers in the first 2.5 months of the season. You can't give all these guys all the time that they need, but they gave Zach Wheeler, they pushed him back a couple of days before his last start on Sunday in Texas, and didn't really do a whole lot of good, it didn't seem. His velocity was still down, and with Ranger Suarez, we will see if pushing his start back by a day will allow him to regain a little bit of his velocity and his effectiveness, because he has not been good here in the second half, and they need the starting pitching is the backbone of this team. The velocity drop with those guys is more concerning, I think, than anything we're looking at on the offensive side of things with the Phillies. But again, these are good pitchers, and they usually will try to figure out their way out of it. They're not injured. It doesn't sound like there's an injury. There may be fatigue. It just might be who Ranger Suarez is, and it's going to limit what he gets on the free agent market. This is a trend. This is going to limit what he gets on the free agent market. He's not getting a big number 1 or number 2 starter type deal. And I really wonder if the Phillies gave him the qualifying offer, would he take it? Would he take the qualifying offer and do 1 more year in Philadelphia to try and rebuild trade value? I don't know. I don't know that the Phillies would run that risk, because if they want to give a spot in the rotation next year to Andrew Painter, they really can't bring Ranger Suarez back. They'd have to get rid of somebody else. Now, maybe they get rid of Jesus Luzardo in a trade, entering the final year of his contract. Maybe they do that. I don't know. There are some things the Phillies can do, and they have some time to figure that out. But I am very curious to see how this is going to shake out with Ranger Suarez's contract. It's got to hurt it. His free agent deal this coming winter, because of these second half drops, unless he can turn it around here over the last month and a half of the season. Now, Ranger Suarez's start is getting pushed back because Aaron Nola is finally ready to return to the Phillies. He had an outstanding rehab outing earlier this week, struck out 11 batters in 5 2/3 innings in his final AAA rehab start. So he will get the start on Sunday against the Nationals, giving Suarez an extra day of rest. And it sounds like the Phillies really need to go with a 6-man rotation. Taijuan Walker has been very good. He deserves to continue starting. And if you can push Zach, I know Zach Wheeler doesn't like extra time. He likes to stay on every 5th day. So maybe that's what they do with Zach and let the veteran decide what he wants to do. But if they need to skip somebody, if they need to, give somebody an extra day, an extra 2 days. They can do that with Aaron Nola coming to the rotation because they have 6 major league quality starters to choose from. Now, who's on the way out when Aaron Nola joins the team on Sunday? One would think that it could be Jordan Romano. The Jordan Romano experiment might finally be done in Philadelphia. It was a questionable free agent signing in the moment. We all questioned it. I don't think we thought it would blow up the way that it has, but he was a guy who was coming off an injury, coming off a down year in 2024, and the Phillies were hoping for a rebound, much like with Max Kepler. And Max Kepler is on the team still. Doesn't look like he's going anywhere. So maybe the same thing will be true for Jordan Romano, but it just seems clear the Phillies can't trust him. They can't trust him with anything serious. He either has a scoreless outing, he'll string together 3 or 4 scoreless outings in a row and then give up a 4-bomb. The final straw that broke the camel's back may have come in this game on Wednesday night. Down 4-0, and Romano's not the reason they lost. Down 4-0, the offense was lifeless and punchless. The Phillies were not coming back to win this game. But he gave up a grand slam down 4-0 in the 7th inning, turning a 4-0 deficit into an 8-0 deficit. And this is just too much of this from Jordan Romano this year. He has a 7.24 ERA on the season, and his ERA by month, check this out. In April, 12.48. A good May, 2.53. 7.27 in June, 5.19 in July. And here in August, 16.36. It's time to just go ahead and cut bait because, you could send out one of the younger guys down to AAA and keep Jordan Romano in the bullpen if you think that there's a chance that he can turn it around. But it may be time, guys, because I don't think Rob Thompson is going to trust him in any kind of in a real situation. So what's the point? What's the point? I'd rather keep Joe Ross on the roster at this point over Jordan Romano. And that's saying something. I just don't think he has it. He can't. His confidence is shot. He doesn't have the stuff. He doesn't have the location. He can't put guys away. It's just time. It's time to say adios to Jordan Romano. It didn't work out. I'm sorry that it didn't. They have other guys who are ready to rock and roll. I mean, Jose Alvarado is going to be ready to come up here probably in the next few days as well. So I would think when Alvarado is ready to come up, Romano could be the odd man out there if it's not on Sunday when Aaron Nola gets called up to the majors following his AAA rehab start. So again, not a pleasant final 2 games for the Phillies in Cincinnati, but nothing to get overly worked up about. This is still a really good team. This is still a top 3 team in baseball. The thing you have to understand with the Phillies is, yes, the Phillies lost 2 games in Cincinnati. They are still a ridiculously good baseball team. They've got lots of great players. They've got good depth. They're going to lose some games here and there. They're going to look ugly doing it. If you take a step back and you look at all the other teams around the league, the only team that doesn't have any flaws right now is the Milwaukee Brewers. But you look at like the Chicago Cubs, Pete Crow Armstrong was on the glide path to maybe finishing runner-up in the MVP vote to Shohei Ohtani. But he was having an MVP season. He's got 3 hits in August. Struggling in a big, big way. Aaron Judge is hitting under 200 here in the second half. The Yankees went into the tank. We've seen the Mets go into the tank. The Mets are hilarious, guys. This game isn't over yet, and it's not going to be over before I'm finished recording, but the Mets went up 6-0 on the Braves. They scored 3 in the first and 3 in the second. And then the Mets pitching staff gives up 9 runs. Atlanta gets a 9-run 4th inning. A Michael Harris grand slam is the coup de grace in that 4th inning, and now in the 6th inning, the Braves lead the Mets 9-6. Like, that's the kind of season the Mets are having right now. You could be a Mets fan. Okay, so things are not bad. It's 2 bad games. It doesn't mean anything for October. But it is a worry for sure because we've seen the offense disappear in October. The bigger concern for the team right now, and something to keep an eye on, is the velocity issues with Zach Wheeler and Ranger Suarez and just keeping everybody healthy. That's the big deal right now. One more thing before we get to my conversation with Ethan. what are the Reds doing with Kyle Schwarber? All 3 games, having him catch the first pitch. They're handing him a key to the city, and they're doing all this. I know he grew up an hour from the Reds ballpark. I get it. He's a native son and all that, but he plays for another team. What is clearly happening here is the Reds organization is openly making overtures toward the free agent to be, letting him know they want him to play in Cincinnati next year. They're gonna probably try and back up a truck and give Kyle Schwarber as much money as they can. Now, it's a small market team. They can't match the kind of money that the Phillies can and probably will throw at Kyle Schwarber. Now, there are other big market teams that will take a run at Kyle Schwarber. There's no doubt about it. I remain thoroughly convinced Kyle Schwarber will be back on a 4 or 5 year deal this offseason. But that being said, this was unseemly by the Reds this week. It was thirsty. What the Reds were doing was thirsty. And I got to say, Kyle Schwarber kind of buying into it. I think with Schwarber, he's a nice guy. He wants to do the nice thing. He wants to do the right thing. And so he took part in what it is the Reds asked him to do as a native son, a native Ohioan, a native Cincinnatian from the suburbs. I get it. He kind of wanted to just play with it a little bit. And I don't think it looked great. I don't think it looked great for Kyle Schwarber. And Kyle usually has his finger on the pulse. He's usually really good about this kind of stuff. And I'm not getting overly sensitive about it either. It's not going to amount to anything. This is not going to be the reason Kyle Schwarber makes a decision. We talk about this all the time with free agents. Do you guys not remember during the Bryce Harper free agency how Bryce Harper was going to go play on the West Coast because he's from Las Vegas and he wants to be, who doesn't want to play close to where they grew up? And we hear this all the time with players. Nick Castellanos wanted to go play for the Marlins when he was a free agent and end up signing with the Phillies because the Marlins were close to his home in Florida. Now, Nick is probably pretty sincere about that because he's really devoted to his family and really wanted to be close to his family, but he ended up playing in Philadelphia. And it's what happens in free agency. Guys, there's all this speculation. Well, he's going to want to play near where he grew up. They're going to want to play near his hometown. Money talks. The union makes it so that players aren't taking hometown discounts, whether it's for the team they just finished, they were playing for before. And I mean, I'm not sure what Kyle Schwarber, if he would give the Phillies any kind of a discount, but I don't think he's going to. And I don't think he's going to give the Reds a discount. I don't think he's going to take a 3-year deal at $40 million a year from the Reds. Like, I think he'll go with like 4 or 5 at 35 for someone else. And the Reds can't do that. I think the Reds might come at him with like a 2-year, $90 million deal or something like that. They could probably stomach that, but there's going to be teams like the Phillies that can offer Kyle Schwarber more than that. But I just thought the whole thing was a little bit weird. You don't do that for an opposing player. And the baseball gods, unfortunately, did not penalize the Reds for such a transgression. We've talked about the Phillies and some of the trouble they had with the Mets last year, all coming from when they let a Mets fan throw out the first pitch at a ball game 2 years in a row. And the karma that brought on the Phillies in 2024. Well, the baseball guys did not deliver the Reds the hammer that they should have. Really, it was something you don't go out of your way to honor another the opposition's player the way they did. It was kind of ingratiating. It was a little kiss up. I don't blame Kyle Schwarber necessarily for taking part. You're asked to go stand behind home plate and catch the first pitch. Okay. But it was clear what the Reds were trying to do. It was clear what the Cincinnati organization was trying to do. And I don't know how it's not tampering. I mean, I know it's not like the GM contacting the player or the agent or whatever and just like, trying to lay down some groundwork. But it was off-putting as a Phillies fan. And don't think we didn't notice, Cincinnati Reds. We noticed, we catch everything here. Nothing gets past us. Matter of fact, maybe some things should get past us that we don't let get past us. We'd probably ease our minds and ease our stress levels quite a little bit if we did. But anyway, that was annoying this week. One of the little annoying things about this series in Cincinnati as the Phillies lose 2 out of 3. Well, this weekend, the Phillies will be in the nation's capital to take on the Washington Nationals, a team that I think I expected a little bit more from this year here in 2025 after a season last year in which, they were kind of surprising, a spunky little team, I think, in 2024. They did not take the step forward here in 2025 that a lot of people were expecting. Remember last year, the Washington Nationals were 71-91. Not good. You're 20 games under 500. It's still, not considered a good season, but there were young stars on the ascent, and it has been a disaster of a season in Washington. Joining me to help talk to me about what's been going on in the nation's capital with his Washington Nationals is my 14-year-old son, Ethan. Ethan, thanks for coming back on Hittin Season, my little buddy. How are you?
I'm great, considering my team sucks.
Tell me why. Why do they stink right now, Ethan? I mean, at 48-72, they did win, I believe, on Wednesday. Is that correct?
They did win on Wednesday, yes. Not easily. Once again, our pitching staff did not do well, but our offense had a rare good day and scored 8 runs.
Yeah, so they beat up on the Kansas City Royals, or edged the Kansas City Royals.
Yes.
But you mentioned some of the issues going on with this team. One of the criticisms I had of the Nationals in the offseason, Ethan, was that, they had some good young players. They have, C.J. Abrams, Luis Garcia, James Wood. At the time you thought that Dylan Cruz might be a contributor, and they had some young guys coming up. You had Mackenzie Gore in the starting rotation. He took a big step forward this year. So you really did think that, hey, there's some pieces here. Maybe if they add a couple of extra little pieces, add a couple of, maybe one impact veteran signing. You go get one big-time free agent that really helps the rest of the team. You go get an additional starter, and maybe you're fighting for a wild card spot in the National League. And they didn't do anything this offseason, and I wonder if that's one of the reasons why they're not doing so well right now.
Definitely, yes. You have to have some experience on a team. As much fun as it would be, you can't rely completely on rookies. And that's kind of what the Nationals are trying now, and it's not working. And I don't care what you say, Nathaniel Lowe does not count.
Yeah, no, Nathaniel Lowe with his negative 0.5 wins above replacement at first base and his 655 OPS, and Josh Bell. Everybody loves Josh Bell, but 731 OPS as your DH. He's got 15 home runs, but not a 233 batting average. It's just that's not going to get it done. But really, Ethan, you hit on it, and it's been really tough to watch. I've watched a lot of Nationals games with you this year. It's been rough.
It's been painful.
It has been painful, no doubt about it. And I think you hit on it. Really, it's the starting rotation. It's the bullpen. It's the pitching staff that has been its big downfall. Mackenzie Gore has had a great season. He was an all-star. Now, he has stumbled a bit here in the second half. That ERA up to 4.09 on the season. He was trucking right along there, but he has struggled a bit here in the second half. But I think we all saw from him a guy who was emerging as a guy who could be a staff ace type player. But really, you look at the rest of the rotation. Jake Irvin has a 4.90 ERA. Mitchell Parker has a 5.55 ERA. Trevor Williams, a 6.21 ERA. Michael Soroka had a 4.87 ERA. And, they've actually had some stability in the starting rotation. Those 5 guys have all started at least 16 games. They haven't had any injuries. They've stuck with these 5 guys. You had Brad Lord make 10 starts, but I think they did that more as kind of like an opener type situation. But he's got 85 innings under his belt this year. The starting rotation has been stable. They've just been bad.
Yeah, pretty much. I think Gore's main problem lately was that he just got into a lot of very high pitch counts, and he got very flustered when his pitch counts got so high. And when he didn't last very long. He only would pitch like 5 or so innings. When he was doing well, when he was really good, he might get to 6. But when his pitch count starts getting up there and people start hitting off him, he really can't go more than like 3 or 4 innings.
What's been the biggest disappointment for you this season with the Nationals, Ethan? What are you most disgruntled about?
There's a lot. One of the major disappointments of the year was not really getting to see Dylan Cruz all that much. He's been on like the 60-day IL since April, I think, with an oblique strain. He's been rehabbing in Rochester for how many months is that now? 6? And he was starting to look kind of promising. I mean, his batting average was not very good, but in only, about a month or 2 of play, he had hit 7 home runs, and he was racking up the RBIs.
Yeah, I mean, so Dylan Cruz not being around is definitely part of the problem. I think too there was a belief that some of these other young guys might take a little bit of a step forward. I think Keibert Ruiz has been disappointing behind the plate. He seemed like a guy who was going to be early in the season, kind of a guy who established himself, but he's only hitting .247. He's only drawn 8 walks this year as a hitter. So he has a .277 on base percentage, and there's just no power there. 2 home runs and 12 doubles in 68 games for Keibert Ruiz. So, I mean, I think the Nationals have to figure something else out at the catcher position. They have some decent pieces. Obviously, their 2 best players, James Wood, who leads the league in strikeouts, but also has 25 home runs, 78 RBIs, 26 doubles, batting .261, has an .849 OPS. I know he has struggled a little bit here in the second half, but that's a guy you've got to feel good about, right? That's a guy for the Phillies really need to be careful of here. Just 22 years old. He is the superstar on this team.
He certainly is, and he's one of my favorite players to watch just because the way he can just reach out and launch opposite field blasts it's really impressive to watch. And I do agree that he has been struggling the second half, and this is just me speculating, but I think you told me once that some people don't like to do the home run derby because they think it messes up their swings.
Mm-hmm.
And James Wood did participate in the home run derby this year. He did not win, which I was very sad about. He got eliminated in the first round, but that's okay. But yeah, after the All-Star break, he was horrible for like a 3-week stretch. He was hitting really badly. I think there was one stretch when he was like 3 for 33 and hitting like 190. He's doing better now. In the series they had against the San Francisco Giants recently, he had 3 doubles, a home run, and I think he was 7 for 10. And he did well on Tuesday and Wednesday as well, but I do think that when they really needed him, he wasn't there, and he didn't produce enough during the second half of the season.
I'll say the one other guy who had a really nice bounce-back season. He didn't end the season well last year, but C.J. Abrams has been really good. Second on the team in WAR. He has a .785 OPS. He's been worth over 3 wins above replacement, 15 homers, 25 doubles. He's got 26 stolen bases. I mean, he's become a really solid shortstop, one of the better shortstops in the National League. I mean, there are building blocks on this team. Abrams is 24 and Wood is 22. Abrams has been really good.
I do particularly like C.J. Abrams. He's a fun player to watch. He's a very, very good defensive shortstop, and he makes some cool plays. I think what I kind of envisioned him as is another Trey Turner, and I think he's kind of filling that role. I mean, he's never going to be Trey Turner. Trey Turner's very hard to match, but I think he is kind of like a lesser Trey Turner right now in terms of he's a leadoff man. He hits, and he hit a home run on Wednesday. He has power. He can pop it if you give him the right pitch. Yeah, I think he's a good player to have on the team, and I certainly don't see them trading him at any time soon.
No, I think he's going to be a National for a really long time. I don't think he's going anywhere. But as far as the rest of the guys on this team, I think every single one of these players on the Nationals could go someplace else and nobody would bat an eye. Now, they've called a lot of guys up, right? They've called up Brady House. They've called up Robert Hassel III. They've called up a few different guys to try and help out. None of them have really worked out all that much. Alex Call is third on the team behind Wood and Abrams in terms of wins above replacement. And he's kind of a utility guy. He doesn't play every day, but he's actually been probably their third best player on the team this year. But who's a player on the team that you really like that Phillies fans should watch out for? It can either be a position player or it can be a pitcher. But probably not a pitcher because they don't really have...
Yeah, they don't really have anyone besides Gore. I would say watch out for Dalen Lyle. Dalen Lyle is another guy that they called up. They called him up shortly after Robert Hassel. I think it was in May. He started off very slow, and I was surprised when they didn't send him back down. But after the All-Star break, he's really picked it up. As I was watching him on Wednesday, I was like, his batting average is .260. It's not... He hits pretty consistently. He hit the go-ahead single that scored the run on Wednesday that gave them the win. He's a very good defensive right fielder. That's usually where he plays. Yeah, he's a fun little player who can punish you if you don't be careful with him. And he also has a great eye at the plate. He does not chase very often at all.
Well, Ethan, your point is well taken. In the second half, he has a .293 average with a .453 slugging and a .783 OPS. It was a .635 OPS in 33 games in the first half, but he's played 21 games in the second half and has a .783 OPS. So a good scouting report right there from Ethan on a player to watch here in this series. The young Dalen Lyle. Who is just 22 years of age, another young call-up. A lot of young players on this team. Seems to be a lot more coming via the position players than from the pitching staff. And I just want to read off the list of some of the bullpen names. You ready for this list? This is everybody who's pitched in the Washington bullpen this year. You ready for these names?
It's extensive.
Okay. Kyle Finnegan, who we all know and who we all know well. I'm shocked he's still a National, that they didn't trade him. But
they did trade him.
I don't think he had a lot of value.
They did trade him.
Oh, they did trade him. That's right. Who got Kyle Finnegan?
The Tigers.
That's right. Okay, so they don't even have Kyle. So there's no Kyle Finnegan for the Phillies to mount massive late game comebacks against this weekend. That's a shame. Yippee. Who's their closer now then, Ethan?
No one really. I mean, it's pretty embarrassing. We don't really have a closer. Whichever reliever is open, to be honest. It's just whatever reliever is to be open and hasn't pitched too much closes out the game.
And I guess you got to have a lead in order to need a closer.
Yes. So there haven't actually been a lot of blown saves, partly because there hasn't been a need for a closer because the Nats have been losing so often. And honestly, I think Finnegan was just a washout.
Yeah, he was pretty much done there. But so no more Finnegan. So you have Jose Ferrer, Jackson Rutledge, Cole Henry, and these are some of the other names of pitchers. Most of these gentlemen have been well below replacement level players. Eduardo Salazar, Jorge Lopez, Zach Brzzycki. Gosh, how do you say? I don't even know.
I think it's Birksey.
Birksey, let's go with that. It's Brzykcy, so good luck figuring that one out. He's got negative 0.6 wins above replacement and a 9 ERA in 26 games. I don't even think we really need to worry about him. Andrew Chafin, Andri Lara, Shinosuke Ogasawara, Orlando Ribalta, Lucas Sims, Luis Garcia, Connor Pilkington, Cade Cavalli, Ryan Lutos, Colin Poche, Mason Thompson, Clayton Beater, P.J. Pullen, and Ahmed Rosario all have pitched at least one inning in the Nationals bullpen this season. So that is the poo-poo platter of Washington pitchers. So Ethan, as we get a 4-game series going here this weekend, how many games do you think the Nationals will pull out in this series?
Well, first let me point out real quick that the Nats are so desperate that they used Ahmed Rosario, who is a second baseman.
That's
not a
right.
reliever.
That's right.
I thought the Nats might finish with like 81, but now I really got to say, like 62 and 90 something, like in the 60-90 range. I can't do the math that well. But, yeah, I don't think this is going to be a very pleasant end of the season.
What about this series this weekend against the Phillies is what I was asking. How many wins will it's a 4-game series. How many wins do you think we'll see from the Nationals? How are you feeling about the weekend is my question.
Oh, okay. Dismal. I think they'll be lucky if they can pull out one win. Tying the series would be awesome, and winning it would be far too much to ask.
A miracle, I think, is what it would take for the Nationals to win 3 out of 4 against the Phillies this weekend. But stranger things have happened, and certainly the Phillies have had a lot of success against the Nationals, both in Washington and Philadelphia. But every once in a while, they come to the nation's capital and get distracted by the monuments. And so hopefully that doesn't happen this weekend for Phillies fans and for Nationals fans, hard, long-suffering Nationals fans like Ethan, who watched their manager and general manager get fired this year. And I think there's a lot of questions about what the direction of the Nationals are right now. Those are questions that are going to wait till the offseason. In the meantime, I know, Ethan, you're just trying to find little glimpses of hope as the season goes along here, right? Like, what are you, last question, as we finish up the season, why are you watching? Like, what is it that you're interested in seeing as you watch them over the last couple months?
Well, the main reason I'm watching is because I've followed them for so long, and I love them, and I can't help it. But also, I am excited to see their young players develop. I don't think any of them... I mean, James Wood and C.J. Abrams, they might become, like, superstars. I don't think any of their other guys who they've called up this year will necessarily be superstars. But I do want to see their development and see how they might fit into the Nationals' roles. And I am kind of watching for when their draft pick this year, Eli Willits, comes up. He's currently 18, and he says he wants to be in the majors by 20, so that's 2 years. But, yeah.
Well, Ethan, for your sake and for the sake of a happy house, I do hope the Nationals win a few more games this season, just not against the Phillies here over the next week. They get 7 games against the Phillies, 4 in D.C., and then 3 in Philadelphia next week. For those 7 games, I know for Phillies fans, I am hoping that the Phillies come out on top in all those, but always because I live in the nation's capital and I do live in a Nationals house, I do have a soft spot for them, for you. So hoping for better days for the Nationals for you, my son. And in the meantime, I know you'll keep watching, and we'll get you on again for another scouting report when it comes back around again. But Ethan, thanks for joining me here on Hittin' Season, buddy. Appreciate it.
Of course, Dad.
All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. Want to remind you all to please subscribe to a couple different YouTube pages. The first one I want you to go to is the WHYY YouTube page. That's where our roundtable edition of the podcast is. If you subscribe to the WHYY page, you'll get every roundtable edition of Hittin' Season fed right into your smart TV, but you'll also get a lot of great WHYY content as well. So I want to encourage you to do that. This episode of the podcast, however, can be found on our Hittin' Season YouTube page. So that's where that will be. And so I would say subscribe to our Hittin' Season YouTube page as well. But more importantly, subscribe to the Hittin' Season podcast on any one of your podcast apps that are out there. If you have a favorite podcast apps, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is, get your friends and family members who love the Phillies, who want to be along for this ride to the World Series, to subscribe, download, and listen to every episode. You can't watch every game. Let us do that for you. We'll tell you what happened. We'll break it all down. So all you got to do is hop on your favorite podcast app or get your friend's phone, get on their podcast app, and hit follow or subscribe to the Hittin' Season podcast, and that way we'll be with you all the time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Hittin' Season.